begin. My name is Ray Cool. I'm president of PBSI. I want to welcome those of you who've joined us for today's webinar, 6 Steps to EHR Optimization. Some of you have yet to implement your first EHR. Some of you have been deep in the process of EHR for years and you'd like to know how to improve some areas of use. And for all who are listening, hope that you gain something useful and informative today. So our goal is to inform. So quickly the topics. We're going to move quickly. There's a lot of material to cover in 45 minutes. We're going to talk about EHR success and how can we avoid some of the key problems up front that might otherwise occur. PBSI has helped hundreds of physicians implement EHR, so we've gained a lot of information over the years in that experience. And for those who are using an EHR or preparing to use an EHR and you've heard the stories of poor utilization, productivity difficulties, we want to talk about how can you make it better. So how do we evaluate, on what kind of time frame do we evaluate? Then we're going to talk about progress notes, and I'll use PBSI's EHR in the process of demonstrating, but my goal is not to talk specifically about PBSI's EHR today. We want to talk in general for EHR users, how can we help your life get better? And almost always that includes making your progress notes more in line with what you'd like them to look like. So the actual methodology will vary within an EHR, but the principles are the same. So we'll be using PBSI software as a part of this in demonstrating, and a part of that we'll use Dragon Medical, because one key way to improve the concise quality of progress notes is to use your voice and not type. So we'll talk about that. And then finally, at the end of the day, what are the things we really need to insist of an employee in our practice using an EHR? So that's our content. So we're going to move quickly. So again, my name is Ray Cool. I'm president of PBSI. Many of you are familiar with PBSI through many years of experience as a client in a variety of ways. Some of you, this may be your first exposure to PBSI. So for 30 years now, over 30 years, we have helped hundreds of practices implement practice management and clinical systems. We provide IT services for a large number of healthcare clients that don't otherwise use PBSI software. And over the years, we've grown to be the largest regional provider of software, developer of software in this region. So hundreds of clients, lots of implementation experience, and a very experienced staff. Those of you who know PBSI know that you don't care about Ray Cool, the president. You care about all the people who take care of you every day. We have 27 people who have been here for 10 or more years. So anyway, our experience is good, and we can help in a number of areas. And that includes if you're using a different EHR that's not PBSI, talk to us. Let us know how we can help. So implementation. What works with implementation? How do we make sure that day one is a success? You don't want to have your first day be, oh my gosh, this was horrible. So among the things that really are important are having your templates customized in advance by an expert, meaning with PBSI clients, we do this on your behalf. It's not that they're difficult, but how much do you know before you've used an EHR in getting your templates right? And hopefully before this webinar is over, it'll be clear to you why really concise templates that are very well thought through are important to end up with a progress note that you're going to get at the end of the day. So before live, you want to have your templates reviewed very carefully. That will really avoid that first day or greatly reduce the number of times on the first day where the first provider using EHR says, well, this isn't really exactly what I would like these questions to look like, and so forth. Then another really key, we do on-site training spread over time, which I think is really important. So whether it's PBSI or whichever vendor, arranging for on-site training is really, really important, because human nature is what gets in the way of effective EHR use more often than anything else. And the only foolproof solution, there's no foolproof solution, but the very, very best way to make sure that EHR use is effective is to have training on-site. So generally what we do with the client is we schedule one day on-site over a period of 2 to 4 months to 5 months. If it's one provider, it's going to be 2 months or so, and more providers, you're going to extend the time. So one of the things that I want to say up front is have your templates really reviewed and make sure they're in good shape, and have a plan for on-site training. That will really help your day one go better. avoiding the fire hose. And of course, each of us are in different situations. If you're coming from one EHR to another EHR, you can't really do it exactly this way. But if you're implementing your first EHR, you have the luxury of doing it over time. You don't need to. Years from now, no one will remember how long it took you to implement your EHR. Everyone will remember if that time period was a disaster that we'll never forget. So avoiding the fire hose trauma, we like to do this one provider 1 day a week, then that provider 2 days a week, then that provider 3 days a week. So each provider go from 0% to 3% to 6% on EHR to 100% over the period of a couple of months. And then a couple of weeks after the first provider starts, we'll start the second provider. A couple of weeks after the first location, we'll start the second location. So we're taking it gradually, because the key issue isn't really training providers how to do this. It's training all the support staff how to do their jobs that they used to do with paper charts. How do you do them electronically now? And then have an involved process where your trainer is involved in assessing your workflow, because until you've really become effective at using an EHR, you don't really know whether your workflows are perfect or not. So having knowledge that's really engaged with you is really important. So make day one a success. Don't kill yourself with attitude issues because you try to do it all at once. And among the really important things, so many providers talk about lower productivity with EHR. It's almost universal. And it's difficult to be more productive with an EHR than you were with paper charts, but it is possible. And some of the things we're going to talk about today is what are the elements of making sure that your productivity is better. And that's all about finding and fixing bottlenecks and ensuring integration. These aren't the only issues, but don't do things manually when they can be done automatically. So these are really keys. We'll spend a bit more time on that. Same thing with progress notes. You want to make sure that your progress notes are streamlined and deliver exactly what you want to know. There's nothing worse than an eight-page progress note that everybody's frustrated with. You don't know what's new, what's important, what's changed. So carefully considering how you want the progress note to come out is a really big, important part of this, and it's not something that's one time. 3 weeks into it, 3 months into it, 3 years into it, we need to continue to go back and ask ourselves, is this progress note what I want? Is the format, is the content, and what can I do to change it? So that's about usability. So we work hardest and first on the specific templates for most common visit types. So if you're an allergist, that's one kind of visit type. If you're an OB practice, it's a different kind of visit type, and so forth. So, and we want to start with the end in mind. I'll get more into that. So we customize the templates, and we do it for each provider. That's not required. There are clinical protocols that make sense for everybody to share. However, we don't have to be locked into the same, providers don't have to be locked into the same method of clicking, and it's really important that you don't frustrate 2/3 of your providers or whatever by forcing them into the same method of documenting. So, and then we want to look carefully at what goes outside of the practice. Again, we get so many complaints from practices who receive 8-page junk from another practice sending them electronic records or 30 pages or whatever. So how can we, and it's important to consider how to customize the templates of what goes out in a letter. You don't want your whole progress note to go out. That's going to waste a bunch of people's time. I mean, there are variations to every principle. So really pay attention, and we do this on your behalf to look at what that output is going to look like when it goes outside of your walls. And these are really important topics. So then we'll briefly, we won't talk a lot about meaningful use today, but 95% of PBSI clients are in meaningful use and have been since their first year into it, as opposed to the industry average, which last I checked was about 56%. So why that difference? It's a lot of it is oversight. So we actually employ a person at PBSI who monitors meaningful use at each client site as a routine thing. And that's really important in the first days and weeks, and it becomes less important as clients take on that responsibility. But this is about planning and about follow-up. Okay, so some key things that can be avoided if you take the right approach. So most important content of webinar today is about making life better. If you're using an EHR, how can you improve? So the critical questions that we want to ask on a regular basis are, and we're all busy, it's particularly smaller practices, we don't take the time and getting the right people together to take the time, where one physician who says this isn't working well on their own, really it's hard to make something happen in a practice where there are more providers around. So getting the right people together to ask these questions. So what are the most critical issues that prevent us from seeing more patients? Identify the items, prioritize them. And a principle that's long-standing at PBSI, there is no such thing as it doesn't work. We have to ask what part of it doesn't work. So it's too slow. That's not an answer. What is too slow? Which part? Is it a technical thing that's slow? Is it wireless and so forth? Is it your exam clicking that's too slow? Is it the creation of the assessment and plan? Exactly what parts are too slow? And then we break them down and we address them most important first. So we have to stop and ask that question. What paper processes have we retained? Can't tell you how many times I hear from trainers that when they're at a client's office, and we have to do this twice. What do you mean we have to do this twice? Well, we do it here in the EHR, and then we have to still go to this journal and log our open orders. Well, why do you need that journal? Your system is going to be extremely more convenient to check open order status than whatever you had on paper. Well, we just don't trust computers. Well, okay, so we have to really look at that. Where are we producing reports? Where are we producing Excel spreadsheets? What are we doing outside of the system that is fighting efficiency? And this is something that really needs to be looked at. If you're still pulling charts while using an EHR, really look at that. You're stepping on your own toes. And if there isn't an electronic procedure that works, then make one. Work with your vendor, whether it's a custom crystal report or whether it's a regular use of a tool that the system provides. Get rid of the paper. And if you wonder if paper is still being used, hide it. See if anybody misses it. Start taking things away, and don't make the paper appear again until somebody asks you for it. So there's so much that we're all aware of, but then we don't really do something about it, where we're asking, we're just leaving things go the way they used to be done, and nobody's really sure why they're still done that way. Okay, so here's another key. Who is less busy than they were before EHR? So between the time you started EHR and today, if you've been using an EHR, your bottlenecks have changed. They're not the same as they were before. It used to be that the physician was the bottleneck and the nurses were not busy, the nurses were too busy, and so forth. So what's that look like today? So evaluate sources of available capacity, because rearranging workflow so that if the provider is taking too long to document, what can be clicked in advance for the provider's review, or what can we step in and do and change who's doing the work as opposed to who's reviewing the work. So if you're finding maybe it's certain people, maybe it's certain staff positions, but if we see who's less busy, they have time to stand around and whatever, then think of that. What could that person do and take away, whether it's rearranging things to the front desk or from the front desk or to the MA or nursing staff and so forth. Okay, then people. Who are our bottleneck staff members? We hear frequently that there's one particular MA or nurse who they're just slow compared to others. Well, there's some reason for it. It's unlikely to be that they don't care, or there's something in their procedure and they might think it's important, but maybe as a practice we don't think it's important for them to do what they're doing now because they're spending way too much time doing a certain thing that could be done in less time. And so sometimes it's people who need to be trained, not staff functions. This is really just, it's common sense. All of this is common sense, but what I'm trying to do today is raise our attention and awareness of how you go about and the importance of going about actually asking these questions on a regular basis. And if we come up with names, we have a management issue, not a system issue, which is fine. People, we're all humans. Nobody's trying to fire people. We're trying to identify and train and fix. So what parts of the encounter are specifically issues? So when somebody says, it takes me too long to create my progress note, well, we have to break that down. So there's the check-in process, there's the front desk, there's the scanning, there's who takes the histories or reviews the histories, who's taking the chief complaint, how's your review of systems work, process working, exam, assessment and plan, electronic coding, checkout process. These all need to be broken down individually and identified. So who's doing which parts of these and where is it really slow? If we could look at one of these areas and speed it up, what would be the most useful? So again, straightforward. And then where is manual labor being applied? This is a big one. EFACs, with every practice, we make sure that eFax is a part of your EHR solution so that you're taking things in electronically and routing them electronically, never printing and scanning. We find so many practices who say, yeah, we have an EHR, it works fine. How's your fax? It works fine. We just print them, the fax machine prints them out. We just scan them in and attach them to charts. And I think, whoa, that is costing you so many hours a week by that printing and scanning process. Instead, make it electronically from the get-go. Dragon Medical, many of you in attendance, your physicians are already using Dragon. I want to say every provider who doesn't use Dragon and who uses an EHR should be shot. Okay, that's an overstatement, please. But Dragon is such an effective tool, and many times people just aren't aware of how they could really save their typing. Dragon and voice is at least 3 times faster than an excellent typist, at least 3 times faster, and you end up with exactly what you want to say. Really key part of looking in any implementation is this kind of technology being used. And then remote access. Is remote access quick and simple? Do we really have the ability to do everything we need to when we're not in the office? These are just some of the keys, but there's other. Where are we applying manual labor, Excel spreadsheets, and so forth? So these are the big things that if we're going to do an evaluation, we're going to look in these areas and we're going to start prioritizing what actions. So now I'm not really going to classically demonstrate PBSI's EHR. This is all going to be about how do we improve productivity in using an EHR. So I'm going to display on my screen EHR. So in this case, PBSI's EHR, there are buttons that are basically functional areas that I'm permitted to be into because of my security permissions or not. So the things that everybody uses, today's schedule, where I have a patient, I can click on a patient and begin documenting an encounter for today. So I'm going to use this to go through documenting parts of a progress note and identify, so how can we change the efficiency and the content of the progress note by the way we go through this. So I'm going to come back to that, today's schedule. That's where part of our content is. And then I'm going to focus only on one other area, and that is messaging. This is a really important part of an EHR. One of the great benefits that everyone enjoys who uses an EHR, if they use a messaging system, is no more charts. We're not passing post-it notes. We're not passing phone messages outside of the EHR. It's all inside of the EHR. If your use of EHR doesn't includes some paper being passed around from station to station, think about this. There's a different way. So I'm going to look at how the messaging works inside of PBSI. So every person has a message list. Sometimes we call this the to-do list or routed documents. This is the list. When I go in here, it's the list of everything on my desk. So classically speaking, if we weren't using an EHR, the patient's names in this column would be the charts on my desk. So I might have multiple messages for the same patient. But and if it's red, it means there's some kind of alert. So I'll give more information. But basically, this is the only thing I need to look at when I'm not documenting for patients. So if I come back to the main menu just for a moment, there's really simply 2 things I'm going to do with EHR. One is I'm going to document today's encounters, and the other is I'm going to use my to-do list to do everything related to follow-up from yesterday and prior's patients and preparation for tomorrow and beyond's patients. So some of these messages might be information from an encounter that we had recently, and I've got a result, not a review. Some of these might be a result that came in for an encounter we're going to have next week. So in any event, they're all in the same place. So on this screen, this is just for me. So this would be your name instead of my name if this is your screen. So you know all these messages are for you. We know who they came from. So the ridiculous thing in my case is I'm the one who sent them all to myself. In your case, this column would be the names of all the people in your practice. And so it came from another physician, it came from the nurse, it came from whoever. What time did it come to me? What date did it come to me? And what is it that's waiting for me? It's a phone call, it's a prescription refill request, it's a incoming fax that's electronically displayed for me to review, it's new lab results to review. So I'm going to do just a little bit with this because the importance of messaging is so critical. And if you're using any paper to communicate, then I want to show you how a really efficient method of communication can work. So if I were getting a refill request, I'm going to do this quickly. I'm not going to, so I see refill request. Here are the active meds for this patient. Here are the allergies for this patient. Here are the problems we're tracking. I have a button I can go out and look at more information in the chart, but this particular refill is a refill request, which is pending for the Symbicort for this patient. Now, if I wanted to go out and find more information from this patient's chart and look at visit history or lab results or whatever, I could do that. But otherwise, I can say, yep, this looks okay to me. If I want to change something, I can. Otherwise, I say, sign. And if this were scheduled for electronic prescribing, which most are, that would be gone. It would already be done at the pharmacy. So my time in reviewing, or if I'm a nurse taking the refill request and forwarding it to the physician, whatever, the time involved in doing these things are really simple. And then that would be gone from my to-do list. It's not that that's gone from the chart. It's just I don't have any action required on that anymore. So this is like putting a to-do list item in the trash can. So one more thing I'm going to do here, I'm going to say incoming phone call. Okay, so what happened here? This patient called the front desk, and this is the message that came to me. I know the text is maybe really small on your screen, and by the way, if you haven't maximized, you should maximize your GoToWebinar to get the text as big as possible. On my screen, this text is fine, but I just know this comes through. So the patient's concerned about pain, and they want a physician to call. So I'm in the middle of things. This appears to be urgent. I'm not going to return this phone call now, and I'm not going to go look at other things in the chart, which I could do right now. But what I am going to do is I'm going to forward this to another person. In this case, I'll forward it to myself, and I'll make it stat, and I'll make it critical. I really wouldn't forward it to myself. I'd be forwarding it to a nurse to say, call this patient. And when I forward this message, I can select from some things. So this is one of the things that's a part of efficiency is, do you have pre-coded messages so you don't have to type in a message when you're forwarding something? So if I click over here on the right, I click call patient, and this is the text that would result. If I click stat appointment and select it, then this is the text of my message. So customizing these combinations so one click will result in a whole communication, automating the repeat things, really key. Okay, now I'm going to use Dragon Medical here to finish this because I want to say something else about this information. I looked at this chart. I got some information. I want the nurse to know this. So I'm going to do that now. Dragon Medical, I have a microphone in my hand. In the right-hand corner down here at the lower bottom of my screen, this little red icon, that's a microphone turned on its side. That's Dragon not listening to me. Now I'm going to push a button that will turn green, and you'll see text appear. Period. And also please call this patient's cardiologist, comma, Dr. Smith, comma, because the patient's BP is 210/180, and I'm really concerned about medication dosage, comma, especially the Lipitor, period. So I spoke, turned into text on my screen, which Dragon's fantastic. If you don't see that, it will not take long for somebody to know, wow, you can never type that quickly. And so then I finish forwarding my message. It's off of my list. It's onto the other person's list. So messaging includes the ability to get rid of paper. So if you're not using your messaging, and we find people who use an EHR and they don't really even know what we're talking about when we ask about messaging. So this electronic communication has to be really quick and really easy. Everybody loves it if it's used well. So part of the role of your trainer, or PBSI would take in your case maybe, would be to help make sure that all staff know how to use that. Okay, so today's schedule, I'm now going to document something for a patient in an encounter, and my focus is how can we make our progress notes say what we want it to say, and how can we avoid extra junk. So I'm going to go into this encounter for this patient. The patient's here for a cough today, and I'm going to use one part of the encounter as my example of a template. So I have a chief complaint template set up for this encounter type cough. Over here on the right are the sections, and when I expand, what you'll see is the way this particular template is set. So within PBSI, it's really easy to change templates. These are the things we set for you in advance, and they can be customized by provider. They can be customized on an ongoing basis. So in this case, you see that patient has a cough that sounds, and I'm going to choose one of these. Severity is. So the way this works is when I make one click, I'm going to click on the word rattly. Over on the left-hand side, you see automatically came the patient has a cough that sounds rattly, wet. I'm going to say mild down here, and it supplies severity of the cough is mild. So I made 3 clicks and got this information. So here we go about looking at the progress note. Realize that this information is going to come on the progress note. Patient has a cough that sounds, or do we want to just say cough, colon, rattly, comma, wet, severity, colon, mild. That's about customizing the template. How do we want the progress note to look? So we make the template different, resulting, because if you ended up with things, so this cough lasts 3 to 5 minutes, and I start doing more, it's better in the afternoon, cold air and exercise make it better. I'm starting to get more text here, and so somebody will look at this and say, that's fantastic, that's exactly what I want. Somebody else will say, all those words, they're a waste of time to me. I really only want 8 words out of what we've clicked so far. So we customize the template and so forth. So this is the idea. Fix the template fixes the progress note. So we look at this and customize the templates. Okay, so one other thing now I'm going to do is I'm going to use Dragon for documenting a part of my encounter. So this could apply to where are you clicking? You're clicking through an exam with 25 clicks in it, or a review of systems. Can you document with your voice? So now I'm going to use Dragon to do a couple of things. And instead of having an assessment and a plan section, I might just put my assessment and plan here, because sometimes clicking the assessment or clicking the plan works beautifully for a flu where the assessment's commonly really the same. No need to re-speak that information. So here I'm going to use my voice. Patient presented today with a cough, comma, and we recommended normal flu follow-up, period, new paragraph. Okay, so that was just really straightforward text, whatever I wanted to say. Now I'm going to use a template, normal ROS. Select glands denied. Glands, throat was soft and we need to schedule additional testing, period. Go to bottom. New paragraph. Normal exam. Select regular rate and rhythm. Heartbeat was abnormal and we need to schedule a cardiology consult, period. Okay, so with this, I spoke some text. I used a template in exactly the form I want. I used another template in exactly the form I want. So now I've been able to really create a custom progress note without even modifying any templates, just by using Dragon templates. It's so easy to do. We can show you how to do this inside of your EHR. It doesn't matter which EHR you use. So now, when I complete this, if I looked at my progress note, which by the way, within PBSI, we can customize which sections of the progress note come through when you want to look at it. So there's a bunch of things we may have documented. And so the content and the sequence of the screen are very modifiable, but in this case, we have a chief complaint, which included some things I clicked. And we have some transcription, which wouldn't have to be labeled transcription. It might say additional documentation, or it might say SOAP. And then review of systems, assessment plan, whatever we want to include, it was all done with my voice. So you can see how this could come from, at one time, we started off and we were getting 8 pages of stuff that's indecipherable from our EHR, and now we're getting a really concise progress note because of the way we've customized templates and because of the way we've used our voice. So because we promised to be through in 45 minutes, I won't spend more time demonstrating, but there are all kinds of cool things, like for a particular specialty, OB history. In this case, we're dealing with a man, so there's no OB history, but and all kinds of customization where prenatal exams or whatever encounter types, or they're very much tailored to the specialty. Here's an example of a flow sheet where we're tracking Coumadin for this patient, an example of a lab summary where we're tracking certain labs for this patient, and the blue button here that allows me to go out and get patient information about it, and so forth. So anyway, there are all kinds of important things inside of an EHR, but I'm not going there today. Our topic is efficiency. Hopefully you've seen, and what needs to be applied then individually for your EHR is to ask the question, how customizable are the templates? What can I do to impact the content and sequence of what goes into the progress note, and what can I do to impact how things are pulled together in letters that go outside? So these are areas where we help a practice and help get inside of your HR and help revamp and relook at aspects of your workflow. So I'm going to return now to PowerPoint, and I'm going to come back to, so there are a lot of things that we're going to train employees to do. What are the really critical elements that if we have certain just absolute requirements for employees, what are they? So the first in my mind is the to-do list. We want to make sure every employee is using their to-do list effectively and on a very timely basis. Phone messages, if anybody is still passing messages around on paper, we have to get away from that, because partial use inside of a practice where 90% of the staff is using your messaging system and 10% of your staff is working around it, you have to fix that or you don't have an effective messaging system. If I go to my to-do list and I know that it's my to-do list except for everything from Dr. So-and-so or from nurse so-and-so, then my to-do list is not really nearly as helpful. So principles for the to-do list is review it really every few minutes all day long, so that if something critical comes up, and there's a way to be alerted when you get a new message on your to-do list, but this is something where you cannot have a person in the practice where you forward them a message, a phone call to make to a patient or an insurance company to call or whatever, where you're wondering if they're going to do it within the next 5 minutes or the next 2 hours or the next 2 days. That's just impossible. So every employee has to commit and be trained. We're using our to-do list all the time. Everybody can count on me. If you send me something, I got it. And that means keeping your to-do list short. So just a little bit of context here. What that means is a short to-do list. We tell every employee your list has to be empty at the end of every day. This is similar to email. You can see that, but it's different, and this is all encrypted and HIPAA controlled and audited. This is all inside of our EHR, and the only people we're communicating with are other staff members in our practice. So this won't include things coming from the outside. They'll include anything that came to our practice. Either we started an encounter, we got an incoming fax, we got incoming phone call, and something that created a record and was sent to me. So these are all from other employees. So I'm required to have this list empty every day. And if somebody wants to check this, there's a feature which is really important, critically important. This is the all practice list where all the stat, critical, and abnormal things come to the top of the list. And so we can see here's a stat abnormal thing from a date that's, shouldn't be more than 20 minutes ago. And this one's from, so this could never be. So here's a case where something was supposed to be done on a stat basis and it hasn't been done for way too long. So here's the person who is supposed to do it. Oh, well, that person's on vacation, so we route it to somebody else. So there's somebody who's monitoring this to-do list on the practice-wide basis all the time. Really important. Then we can write her. So if this person was supposed to keep their to-do list in order, we can go and look at their to-do list and see what all else is on it. Are there a bunch of stat things? Oh my gosh, this person hasn't been paying attention. Now we have a management issue. We're going to go to this person and say, way too many things on your to-do list. You have to clean this up. You can't get a paycheck here unless you keep your to-do list clean. So returning back to PowerPoint, the biggest first thing every employee has to do is use and keep their to-do list clean. Really important. Okay, then second, fix productivity issues. So that is not now a practice thing. This is an employee thing. If I am having bottlenecks, where are they coming from? Let me communicate those and make me responsible to communicate those specifically. It's my chief complaint. There's too many clicks. It's taking me too long, or I'm doing something twice. I'm doing it here and I'm doing it there. How can we look at this? So you have to empower employees to say, this is a problem. So I'm evaluating wait time. Now I'm talking about myself as an employee. I'm a nurse or I'm a physician, whoever I am. Where am I sitting and waiting for somebody else? That wait time needs to be understood and communicated. So I'm twiddling my thumbs for 10 minutes every hour because it's taking the nurse too long to do what they're doing. So if I communicate about that, then it allows all of us to think together about how we can fix that and fix the bottleneck that's causing me to wait. Then another thing I highly encourage each employee to be responsible for is pick one day a week where I go to a screen that I use, but there are buttons there I don't understand, I've never used them, never tried to see what that does, and explore. Obviously there's some danger in this, but within the right context, cause me to do self-learning and self-questions, and it results in me having 6 questions I didn't know. Then when I ask those 6 questions, the manager in our office or the person at PBSI or our EHR company can say, here's what those buttons are for. Oh, I had no idea I could do that. So what's impossible is for your vendor to know what you don't know. It's impossible. Only you know what you don't know. So go to screens you use frequently and explore. You will find productivity gains all over the place, chances are, and each of us, if we're responsible to do that, will learn and we'll get better at our job, and then we'll communicate with each other. So more about that in a second. So improving knowledge will help productivity, and it takes a team effort. So the final thing here, if I learn something really useful, share it, because I hear so often from our training staff that so-and-so in the practice knows how to do this really well, but the other person who does that job or the other 2 people, they don't do it nearly as well because there's no best practices sharing going on. So if we have an established procedure where every day, if I've learned something, I figured out a way to document, and this can be different in each practice. Do you have a knowledge sharing document, or do you have an email process, or email your manager, or keep a list of the things you've learned? Whatever, have an organized way to pool your knowledge. It's difficult, but it's really critical, and you will improve productivity if you do this. So I mentioned this, our trainer's biggest job is retraining staff on issues that are already known within the practice. They're just not known by that person. So if you're a manager, insist on these 3 things. Use your to-do list, be involved in identifying productivity issues, and share your knowledge. So really, really important areas. So we're finished. I could go into more detail, of course, but our goal is we want to be efficient. Every time we do a webinar where you get value from what you've heard, we're not trying to sell products, we're trying to help increase knowledge. And this same mindset goes through to the services that we do provide and change for. But if you have any questions, feel free to chat. I'll give you a second. In fact, you can chat anytime you want to during webinar. We'll make sure questions are answered, but feel free to call us. Likely your email invitation came from MedSales, Karen Reed, and email questions, call questions, anyone's welcome to contact me at any point. I'm happy to interact with clients and prospective clients. We can do free personalized demonstrations on-site in your office or by web, or just have phone conversations to explore which EHR you're using, how might we go about helping you, would you like to gain more information about how you might engage us to help you or one of your clients to improve their productivity. And we do free quotes for everything, so you never wonder. We're not shy about how much something costs, because you don't want to waste your time considering something when it's going to cost you way more money than you were really planning on devoting to that. So a lot of services we offer. Dragon Medical is one. We supply Dragon to hundreds of practices who don't use PBSI software. It's a fantastic product, and we're by far the largest in this region. If you're not using Dragon now, get in touch with us. IT services, online monitoring, security monitoring, really important stuff. We offer these services. We do networking and phone systems and internet and dial tone. So there are other services you might be interested in. Feel free to contact us. But so far as today's webinar, I hope this has been helpful in identifying some of the ways that we can improve productivity in using an EHR. So with that, our content today is finished. I want to thank each of you